Hey everybody, and welcome to another model building workshop. And today we're going to talk about a weird, little known German light tank. Hope everyone's enjoying their summer. We're coming to you from the Smith Hill Library here in Providence, Rhode Island, and a nice warm summer day. Anyway, so we have the Hobby Boss German Panzer II J, which is the VK1601. So the Panzer II J was part of the Panzer II family. The most popular ones were the A, B, and C models, and then it went on to the F, which was an improved version, which had a better turret cupola and a little stronger armor, and that one was around 1941. So the Panzer II was a main battle tank for the early part of the war, especially like the invasions of Poland and France. It was meant to be a training tank. It wasn't really meant to be a combat vehicle, but as the war happened in 1939, suddenly these tanks had to go. They had to be used in combat. So the 2J is basically a progression of that series of tanks, but yet it's also got a lot of completely different innovations to it. So the idea was, it's a light tank. It's got a 20 millimeter autocannon and a machine gun. And it has heavier armor than the previous versions of the Panzer II. It was meant to take out fortifications and infantry support. Not many of these were made, and I think some of the top units that had used them, not that there were many to begin with, built, but some of these were, I guess, put together in like a Panzer battalion, I think V66. Which I gathered was meant to be a group of different types of tanks like Panzer I-F and a few other oddball vehicles. And I think the idea was for a possible invasion of Malta, they had an assortment of vehicles for that, which never happened. So I gathered the ones that were in that group then were transferred over to the 12th Panzer Division to be used on the Eastern Front. And the other unit that seemed to use these was the police battalion, Panzer Battalion 13, which used these in Yugoslavia, like the Balkan area, probably Croatia in particular. And I'm going to show you a magazine. This is back from 2017. This is Military Modelcraft International. This has a nice article on some of these late war light panzers that the Germans used, such as the Panzer I-F. And anyway, let me show you here. So in this magazine, we see a bunch of these vehicles, the Panzer II J being used by the Police Battalion 13, as it was used in the Balkans for anti-partisan duties. And that is what is depicted in this Hobby Boss kit. It's got the early Panzer Gray, and it has the building and gate emblem that was with the police battalion in use in Yugoslavia against the partisans. So let's have a look at the kit, shall we? So, typical Hobby Boss instruction manual with some pretty nice diagrams. The typical tub, lower hull, and wheel assemblies. This has the interwoven suspension system, typical of German half-tracks and unused with the Panthers and the Tigers. I read somewhere this thing was nicknamed the Tiger Cub. Oh, I want to point out the link and length track assembly, which doesn't look too terrible. Now I built a couple of Hobby Boss light panzers. I did the Panzer I-F, the early version, and I did a Panzer I-C, another really odd bird. And they had this type of suspension, and I found it to be generally pretty decent to put together. The only thing that was really tricky about it was trying to paint the suspension and the tracks. That took a little bit of practice. you know, because the interwoven wheels, and then you get the track, and you have to build on it. So I did many different, you know, I painted a little bit, assembled a bit, painted a bit, assembled a bit, and it seemed to work. There may be easier ways, but that's how I ended up doing it. And then it gets a little busy toward the end of the construction. Well, in that there's a lot of storage, and it's all going on these small fender pieces. And I'll show you the size of this kit in a minute. It's not too bad, but I heard that in this magazine here, it talks about the 1/72nd version of this kit by Flyhawk, and I can only imagine how difficult that would be, because it would be about the size of your thumb, the whole kit, right? Because it's a very small tank. So yeah, the final assembly is mostly the stuff that would go on the fenders, all the gear, and there's a tow cable, which is, I guess, they give you rope to work with. And this minimal photo etch, which I think is, for me, a good thing, because I'm not a big fan of that. But, you know, to each their own. And then, of course, the turret assembly. This has a small turret, single hatch. It has a choice of two different types of gun barrels. They're a longer or shorter version. I'm not sure how many of each design were made, or which one was the more popular. I'm not positive. I guess you can look at some of the photos, although some of these photos here don't exactly give you the best look at the gun barrel, because a lot of these are shown from the rear in this column of Panzers in Yugoslavia. They do have a nice color profile section here, which I want to show you as well. If I get these pages to cooperate. Here we go. And this is both the Panzer I F on this side here. And there you see a couple of the Panzer II Js. I think both of those are the 12th Panzer Division. Those markings are not in this kit, although they probably wouldn't be difficult to find the decals to do those if you wanted to out of your spares box or what have you. So let's take a look at what's in the box. A fun feature with Hobby Boss kits is they give you this little ad for other kits, including the one you just bought. So it's kind of fun to see, hey, you can also buy. It's kind of like seeing previews to a movie. Hey, and there's a T26 version there, which we've talked a lot about T26s in other episodes. And here is your very basic paint guide for this vehicle. And it doesn't even tell you where this vehicle is. That's kind of an issue with Hobby Boss. It would be nice if they explained that this is the 13th Police Panzer Company down in the Balkans. It doesn't, but some research from a couple of books. That magazine's one, and there was another, I forget the name of the series, but there's a book about panzers in Yugoslavia, which does show more of this unit in operation, like the magazine does. So, okay. So here's the top of the hull. So you get a size right now. You can see how big this is going to be, right? So here's the tub for the hull. So it's not a particularly big tank. And it has the indentations for those large circular doors for the crew to get in and out, which are common on the Panzer II J and the Panzer I F. All right, the suspension system. Fairly large road wheels considering the size of the vehicle, actually. And not too bad. Nice moldings. I really like how Hobby Boss's kits look. So there's that. Here is the length and length track pieces, which surprisingly are rather large for a tiny tank. This is a very heavily armored, I should say, vehicle. You know, I think it has some like 80mm thick armor plates on it. Just slightly silly for a light tank. So it's not really a light tank because it's, you know, it's got really thick armor, but it's got a tiny cannon. Weird concept, really, I think. But again, that came from a report done after the war in Poland, that they needed a heavily armored light tanks because the Panzer Is and IIs that they had then in service just weren't cutting it. I think they realized, well, neither was the gun really, so this whole adventure in armor kind of went nowhere. And as I just said, most of these tanks ended up in oddball units, such as, you know, anti-partisan duties, which for that they'd probably be more than adequate. So some more fender pieces. Again, pretty good sized fender pieces, really, for such a tiny tank. Like the fender's almost, it's almost bigger than the hull. So it's a very squat, small vehicle. The turret is, again, pretty large considering, you know, this is the whole vehicle, right? So the turret is pretty big. Not a whole lot to it, but nice mold. A few other gear, visors. There's the smoke chargers and stuff at the back. So not that big of a parts count, really. Looks like it's going to be fun to do. Decal sheet, well, such as it is, just has the crosses and that fun emblem that they have for the 13th Panzer Police Panzer Company. All right, so there is some photo etch. I guess it depends how adventurous you are with photo etch and how good you are with super glue and tweezers. I know I cringe. A lot of people love this stuff. There are some clear parts here, and there's that rope that you can use to make the tow cable. That's in there too. So this should be a fun kit to work on. Looking forward to doing it, actually. Because I did enjoy the 1C quite a bit, and the 1F. They were both fun, and at some point I'll show you what those look like. Okay, so that's our sneak peek, shall we say, our inbox review here of the Panzer II J. All right, see you guys soon. Enjoy your summer day.